Hey everybody, Alex Newman here. We are still at the Red Pill Expo, and with us is a very special guest, one of the youngest legislators in the country. His name is Christensen, and he is just a liberty-loving lawmaker. He's involved in some fantastic things that came out of Young Americans for Liberty. Thank you very much for being with us.
I'm glad to be here. Alex, I have been a part of John Birch Society meetings since I was very little. My grandma's been a chapter leader and part of a chapter, so I grew up reading the New American. So it's an honor to be here and to finally put a face to the name that I've been reading about all these years.
That is so awesome. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much. And before we start talking about the great bills you guys have been working on, taking powers back from the governor, putting a check on the mask madness. How did you get involved in politics, and how did you get elected? So you got elected when you were 22, huh?
Correct.
How'd you do that?
Well, I got involved on a governor campaign when I was 17. So I was a senior in high school. I was homeschooled.
Oh, yeah.
And so I drove this guy around North Dakota to every district convention that I could. And I got to ask him a lot of questions, and he's now one of my mentors at the Legislator. I sat next to him. But so I got to bounce a lot of questions off of him on why it's important to get involved. And so back when I was 17, I was like, well, maybe someday I'll be elected, and who knows, maybe I'll run for office. But it wasn't until I got back I went to a year of Bible school. I came back from that, and opportunities opened up with the Young Republicans in North Dakota. And so I ran for national committee man with the Young Republicans, and that's when we started getting involved in a lot of ground game campaigns. And so we would go all across North Dakota, door knocking for these candidates, making phone calls, attending conventions, putting up signs, you name it. We would do the groundwork. And the opportunity opened up in my district that my grandma lives in, actually, for me to run for political office. And so they went to, believe it or not, 25 other people before they came to me. And everyone else said no, and I'm like, I will do it. And so we ran an incredible campaign from my side of the thing. Young Americans for Liberty came in on the other side of it. I couldn't coordinate anything with them, but they hit just as many doors as I did. They did phone calls. I had the Young Republicans come in on my side, and it was just an insane campaign that we put together. And they weren't counting on me winning because they're like, oh, he's just some young kid that really doesn't know what he's talking about. But you run on the important issues, which is what I was raised with, which was family values, pro-life, life, liberty, property, and that really strikes home with people in North Dakota. And so it was an honor to be one of the youngest elected, and that wasn't why I ran. I honestly hate politics.
Yeah, I know what you
but
mean.
The burden is there for good people to get involved, because if they don't, evil's going to prevail. And so you've seen that in all your work.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for running. What an incredible story. I hope it'll be an inspiration to young people out there thinking about it. Not only can you run, you can win. And so some of the legislation you guys have been working on, we were talking a little bit before we started, you guys have reined in the governor a little bit. Tell us about that.
We did. I forget some of the bill numbers. We voted on over 800 bills, but one bill that stands out to me in particular was House Bill 1323. And this was the infamous mask bill. So it made national coverage. This would prohibit governmental agencies of the state to implement a mask mandate for people to wear. And so it came out of committee with a do not pass recommendation on the House side. That was overridden on the floor only because every 10 minutes we would get an email from a constituent saying, I'm begging with you, please pass this bill. I'm sick of wearing a mask. And it was every 10 minutes for days and days and days. And so we got it passed through the House somehow. Went over to the Senate, same story, do not pass recommendation. That's when the emails flooded all the senators. And then came to the Senate floor, they overrode the do not pass recommendation. It went to the governor's desk. He sat on the bill for as long as he could legally, and then he vetoed it.
Oh.
It came back to the House, and that's when the emails came in tenfold. And we overrode the governor's veto in the House and the Senate. And I don't think that has ever been done before in North Dakota history.
Oh, what a story. That is awesome.
That's just a testament to the bill sponsor, what one person can do when you put your mind to something. And he's an incredible influence on some of the stuff that I've worked through, learning legislation, learning the process, and it's been incredible to follow in the footsteps of some of the people like that.
So. What an awesome story, Cole. And so what's next on the agenda? What are some of the big projects? Are you guys out of session now? And
we are out of session. We had, I think, 75 days that we went in for, so January through the end of April.
Okay.
And then we're going to be coming back in this fall for redistricting. But some of the things coming up is interim committees. So a lot of people, when you get involved in the legislative process, most of the decisions are made 2 years beforehand on the interim committees, and people kind of frame the way the session is going to go. So they've been working on stuff for 2 years. So for example, you get appointed to a committee when you're a representative and you do committee work during the time you're not in session. Okay. So for human resources or workman's comp, or there's all these different avenues where people do work. And I still have yet to learn about that because this is still my first year being in here, but
awesome.
It's exciting to see the process. And I do know that if you do your homework and you work hard to gain people's respect, you can make a difference, even if you're young.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
It's pretty cool to see.
So what do you hope to accomplish in the coming sessions? Are there any things that are close to your heart, near and dear to you, that you want to work on state level or local? Anything that you're working on that you want to work on?
There are a couple things I want to. First and foremost, we have to address our election integrity laws.
Yeah.
We did a little bit of work this last session. I was just visiting with some other people here about what could be done in legislation. And I think if we can bring everything back to a local level, local precincts, paper ballots, and get away from the voting machines, you can overcome a lot of what could be potential fraud, because you can point at a lot of races this past election cycle and say, those numbers don't add up.
Yeah.
So I know I talk with a lot of people, and their faith in the election system has been somewhat diminished. So that's going to be one of the key things. Another thing is going to be private property. I actually was just talking with a constituent about some private property that was confiscated by police.
Oh, wow.
And
with the, what do they call it? The
kind of civil asset forfeiture,
yeah.
almost, but it was in a different section of Century Code. So that's going to have to be addressed in upcoming legislation, because one of my main things is property rights.
Yeah.
And luckily in North Dakota, we have good Second Amendment laws. First Amendment laws are always something that seem to be up for battle, especially with big tech right now. Figuring out ways to make it so people aren't censored. There's a lot of good legislators that are working on some of those complex issues. But anything that will enhance liberty for the future generations is what I'm going to be working towards, and making good policy changes. However, in order to get a bill passed, it is a lot of effort put into it. And there's so many things coming at you from so many different angles. So you have to pick your battles. You can't do everything.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, and you're the guy to answer it because you come from North Dakota and you come from a liberty-minded perspective. So your state is the only state in the union that has a state bank. And
Yes.
I'm normally always and everywhere opposed to a state anything. And yet there seems to be, from the people that I've talked to who are smart, some kind of unique benefits that come to North Dakota from having this system. What are your thoughts on it? First, explain it to people. What is the Bank of North Dakota, and how does it work, and what do you think? Is it a good idea, bad idea? Should other states try it? Or
Sure. So I'm still learning a lot of the appropriations and how that system works, but it kind of comes down to who's in control of it. If it's going to be a board of directors that are appointed by a certain individual, I would typically be opposed to that, because the bank does have a lot of power, because I think most of the state's finances go through all these different accounts in the state bank. And I know that we had, there's so many funds, and they figure out ways to bring all this funding for all the projects that they need. Typically, I would be opposed to a centralized state bank. However, there could be some benefits. So moving forward, I've been talking with some representatives on what we could do to make it so it's not a liability into a strong suit. If we were able to get a gold-backed, or transfer some of the state money from some of these funds into gold or silver and have that in the state bank, no matter what the national economy does, North Dakota could always have something that is value, and then in theory you could make your own currency from that. But right now, if it's all in this fiat currency that we all have, it's a big cause for concern.
Yeah. So for the people out there who are maybe new to the freedom fight, talk a little bit about fiat currency, the monetary system. And I know a lot of states have been taking this issue up. I mean, we had Texas now, they created a bullion bank. You've had a lot of states now that have declared gold and silver legal tender. Mm-hmm. But for somebody who's new to the freedom fight, a young person who's like looking at you like, wow, how inspiring. What is a fiat currency, and what do you think about it? What can we do about it?
Excellent question. I'm not an expert by any means, but the way that I look at it is that if I draw on a piece of paper, this is a $1 bill, and there's nothing backing that has no value other than me thinking that it has value. When in the old days, it used to be that this piece of paper could go buy me 1 ounce of silver. There is nothing backing the current financial system, so it cannot go on indefinitely. Because what we've seen this past year is they just keep adding zeros they just keep printing more money, and then we're starting to see inflation and all the problems that come with an economic collapse. So it's going to be the 1930s again, but tenfold, because everything's reliant upon the technology for transactions and stuff. So if there's nothing backing the currency, it is technically worthless, except for the value that people hold in it with their own understanding of it. So
that's awesome. And before I let you go, I got to ask, you mentioned that you were homeschooled. Tell us a little bit about homeschooling. Was it a good experience? Obviously, you're very well educated. I mean, light years ahead of your average American. Tell us a little bit about the homeschooling.
So I was public schooled 1st grade through 3rd grade, and my mom and dad both saw where the education system was in the direction they were going. My mom taught in public schools for many years, and they just kind of came to the point where they were going to do whatever they had to give us the best education they could. And so they took us out of public school. They did everything that they could to give us the best education that they could, and that was homeschooling. So there was a great network in North Dakota, which is a kind of a cool story. My dad was the 2nd person to be homeschooled in North Dakota.
Oh, wow.
And that was challenged at the North Dakota Supreme Court. But that was almost the beginning of the homeschool movement, was my grandma homeschooling my dad. And so it's pretty incredible to see where that has gone to now, because a lot of people don't want to put their kids in the public education system. They don't want them wearing the masks. They don't want them vaccinated. And you see all these contentious issues and everything that's shoved down their throats. And you come to it from a policy standpoint, where do you even begin to fix this? Other than getting your kids out and starting to teach them the family values and the things that made our country great. Because now we see a lot of kids that just hate America. Yeah. A lot of them are from my generation, unfortunately.
And mine.
Yeah. So if you can get your kids out of the public education system and homeschool them, I would do everything that you could to make sure that happens.
Amen. Well, Representative Christensen, this has been just absolutely fascinating. What a pleasure. Any final words of wisdom you want to leave for the audience, and especially for young people out there? Just encouragement, ideas, thoughts on how to get involved?
So the crossroad I came to is there's not going to be a next time to get involved. It's pretty much now or never. We're at that point in history where if you do not get involved and fight for the things that matter, you're never going to get them back. And so attaching yourself to organizations and getting in those spheres of influences where people actually want to make a difference and fight for the right things is what you have to do. So I would do 1,000 different things than serve in the legislature right now. But there's a duty to fight for those who can't fight for themselves, and to fight for the liberties of the people in your district and in all across the United States. And so we're the ones that are inheriting this mess, and we have to be the ones to bring solutions to solve it. So whatever happens with the financial system, it doesn't matter. We're going to be the ones moving forward and the leaders in our next generation. So getting involved with the Young Americans for Liberty or the Young Republicans, whatever you want to do, the end goal is freedom. And so if you want to be free, you have to take it upon yourself to get involved, because no one else is going to fight these battles for you.
True story. Well, thank you so much, Representative Christian, for all that you're doing. Thank you for being here with us. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the good fight in North Dakota. Folks, you heard it here. Representative Cole Christensen of North Dakota. young man, 23 years old, and he is on the front lines of the battle for freedom in his state. You can be too. So get involved, share this video out, send it to the young people in your life, your kids, your grandkids, whoever it is. Stay tuned for more. We'll be back very soon. Thanks and God bless.